Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming OCS exams happening in May 2025. My name is Nick, and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for OCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. Today's session is going to be quite long because we have to cover a lot. First things first, I'm going to teach you answering and time management techniques. After teaching you these elements, I will take you through one of the mock exams, the questions which we have developed. And whilst taking you through the answer, I will explain how to implement these answering and time management techniques in a practical sense. And at the very end of today's session, I will share some tips which will enable you to rebound from failure, because some of you might have sat for the previous OCS exam and unfortunately wouldn't have cleared it. If so, this webinar is the last part of this webinar is just for you. And if you avoid these pitfalls or shortcomings, you can ensure success in your upcoming examination. So let's look at the webinar and workshop schedule. The fourth webinar, exam prep, is happening next Sunday at 9 GMT or 10 a.m. UK time. So in the fourth webinar, I will be taking you through the exam blueprint, thereby highlighting what the examiner tells us about, what you need to achieve and what you need to aim to achieve when conducting your preparations. And at the same time, at the same webinar, I will share some stress management techniques with you, and you are expected to keep repeating these stress management techniques over and over when you are attempting your mock exams under exam conditions. And then we are kicking our workshop series, kickstarting our workshop series. And in this session, I'm going to take you through a syllabus element concerning your P1 syllabus. And in the upcoming workshops, I will be, similarly to what I'm going to do in today's session, I will be taking you through mock exam questions and answers concerning your F1 and F1 and E1 syllabi. And at the same time, at each of these workshops, I will be conducting a Q&A, because as per our study plan, by the time we are conducting our workshops, you should be done with at least 2 or 3 mock exams. So definitely you will have questions. I'm always there to address your concerns and questions at each of these workshops. And the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before the exam, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity. So make sure to attend these weekly webinars and workshops which we have scheduled for you. This is the best way to keep tabs about your performance on a weekly basis. And if you have any questions or concerns towards the weekend, you can get them answered. All right, so let's look at how you should develop answers. So in other terms, the answering technique. First things first, when developing answers, you need to come up with appropriate headings and subheadings. Each heading should be in bold and underlined format, and each subheading should be in bold format. So let me quickly take you through one of the answers, suggested answers, which we have developed focused on mock exam 1. So as you can see, there's a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format. And there are subheadings as well, which are in bold format. All right. And how many headings and how many subheadings should you have within an answer? So in each mock exam and at your real exam as well, your exam will be divided into 4 different sections. And in each section, you will see 2 or 3 subtasks. So what am I talking about? As you can see, this is one of the sections which appear within our mock exam 1, section number 3. And in this section, you can see that there are 3 different subtasks, namely subtask A, subtask B, and subtask C. So focused on each subtask, you need to develop a main heading which is in bold and underlined format. So in this section, there are 3 subtasks in total. So if there are 3 subtasks in your final answer, you need to have 3 main headings. Okay, so let me take you back to the suggested answer to further explain what I was talking about. So as I mentioned earlier, in section number 3, there are 3 subtasks. And for each subtask, you need to develop a main heading which is in bold and underlined format. This is the main heading for subtask A, which reads as variance analysis. Then this is the main heading for subtask B, which goes as responsibility accounting. And this is the main heading for subtask C, which is again in bold and underline format. All right, so that's everything to do with your headings. And under each heading, if you feel that you need to further fraction out your answers, you are welcome to use subheadings. And as I mentioned earlier, subheadings should be in bold format. That's exactly what you can see in here. I've decided to include various different subheadings under the first section. So because of that, for each sub area, I've come up with a subheading which is in bold format. All right, so that's the first thing which you need to be conversant about. You have to use headings and subheadings because, as I mentioned in the first webinar, the examiner is trying to replicate a real-life corporate environment. So in a real-life corporate environment, it's as if you are responding to your manager. So when responding to your manager, you need to stick to this methodology where you have appropriate headings and subheadings, thereby structuring your answer appropriately so that the reader can easily understand the content of your response, or the marker can easily understand the content of your answer. And when developing answers, you are supposed to provide answers in paragraph form, and each paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 line sentences. So let me go back to take you back to the suggested answer which we have developed. As you can see, we have provided answers in paragraph form. So the examiner asks you to avoid writing answers in single line sentences or providing answers in bullet points. Instead, your entire answer should be in paragraph form. And you can clearly see that I have not written everything together. I have not included all the points together in one single paragraph. Instead, I've fractioned out the answer by developing a paragraph per answer point. So in each of my paragraphs, I've included an answer point. And when you develop answers in this manner, it makes the marker's life easy because the marker can easily count and see how many points you have included within your answer. So if you look at this answer, there are 3 within the screen. Within the screen, you can see 3 different paragraphs. And in each of these paragraphs, I've included 1 answer point. So you need to develop a paragraph per answer point, and each paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 line sentences. All right, so that's the second element you need to cover. And how should you manage your time? So when it comes to time management, as you know, each section carries a time allocation of 45 minutes. So how should you manage these 45 minutes? First things first, you need to allocate 5 minutes to read through the entire scenario. And the entire scenario includes what the type of information which appears within your reference material. So if this is your first CIMA case study, you won't know what I'm talking about. So, let me quickly take you back to how your questions are structured, take you back to one of the mock exams so that you can understand how the questions are structured. So it's as if you are receiving an email from your finance manager or any other manager within your organization, and there's some information about what the company is facing at the moment. Additionally, you will gain access to additional material which comes under reference material. So in each section, you might have access to just 1 reference material. In some sections, you will have access to 2 separate reference material, or in some instances, you will see 3 different reference material as well. So at your exam, on top of the information presented in the scenario, you will gain access to 1, 2, or 3 reference material, which thereby the examiner is sharing additional information with you. So you need to allocate 5 minutes to read through the scenario and all available reference material. After doing so, after gaining an understanding of what the company is facing at the moment, after gaining an understanding of what you need to achieve when developing your answers, you need to focus your attention towards developing something called an answer plan. So this is when you are investing time to structure your answer. So right after reading the scenario, you are not jumping the gun and trying to type out your fully fledged answer or your final answer. Instead, you are spending some time to plan out the answer. This is when you are thinking what to include within the answer, what type of theoretical elements should be brought in when developing answers. You are thinking whether you can bring in some information from the pre-scene with the intention of enhancing the quality of your answer. And at the same time, you are expected to figure out, whilst developing the answer plan, you are expected to figure out whether your answer is aligned with the requirement or not. So with that in mind, you need to allocate 20 minutes in each section, thereby developing an answer plan. Let me quickly show you what an answer plan should look like. So as you can see, this is the answer plan which we have developed for mock exam 1. So this is not in paragraph form. Instead, for each point, I've come up with, for each main point, I've come up with a bullet point. And within this main point, if you need to include additional information, I've done so as well. So this is ideally a mind map of the entire answer, or a structure of the entire answer, which helps you to plan out your answer. And at the same time, you can always, whilst developing this answer plan, you can always refer back to the requirement and see whether you are developing an answer which is aligned with the requirement. Because most students, when they are operating in a time-pressured environment, when they're exposed to extreme levels of exam stress, what happens is you will panic. So because of that, you would try to read through the scenario's information in a jiffy. And after doing so, straight away, you'd start typing out the answer. But halfway through the answer, you will figure out that your answer is inaccurate, or the answer is not aligned with the requirement. When this happens, you'd end up deleting the entire answer and you'd start from scratch. And when you start from scratch, you know for a fact that you have wasted time. This leads to intense levels of stress. And when you are exposed to intense levels of stress, you'd experience something called brain freeze. So when you are exposed to brain freeze, even though you are trying to develop an answer, nothing will come to your head. So in order to avoid all these inefficiencies, I want you to spend some time to develop the answer plan, or develop some time to structure your answer. Once you have structured your answer, utilizing the remaining 20 minutes of your time, you are supposed to expand the answer plan in paragraph form. So as I mentioned earlier, per valid point, you need to develop a paragraph. For instance, let's assume that you, under a certain subtask, you included 7 valid points within the answer plan. So if you included 7 valid points in your answer plan, then in your final answer, you need to have 7 different paragraphs. So if you had 7 valid points within your answer plan, then in your final answer, you need to have 7 different paragraphs. When this is the case, the examiner can easily, pick and select the paragraphs which are accurate and the paragraphs which are inaccurate. And based on it, the examiner can easily allocate marks. On the flip side, if you write the entire answer in one single paragraph, the examiner will struggle to figure out how many points you have included, how many of your points are accurate and how many are inaccurate. So you'd be in the bad books of the examiner or the marker. So rather than being in the bad books of the marker, it's better to be in the good books. And the only way to be in the good books of the marker is to listen to what the examiner asks you to achieve when it comes to developing answers. So that's the time management technique. And with regards to typing speed, you need to type at least 20 words per minute. If not, you will always run out of time. So if you are sitting for this exam for the first time, and if you're clueless about your typing speed, I will encourage you to use, there are so many, free platform out there online. Go check them out, check your typing speed, check your typing accuracy to see whether you are capable of typing at least 20 words per minute. If not, you need to put in some additional effort within the upcoming 6 weeks to improve your typing speed. So with the intention of improving your typing speed, again, there are free platforms out there which will help you to get your grasps with typing speed. And at the same time, simply you can purchase a newspaper and on a daily basis allocate an hour of your time and start typing what's on the newspaper on a laptop or a computer, because you can only improve your typing speed by practicing typing. Okay, so that's that. And I said that when before you type out your fully fledged answer, you are supposed to structure your answer, or in other words, you are supposed to develop something called an answer plan. So when developing the answer plan, you need to determine how many points you need to include for each and every subtask. And you can achieve this by looking at the weightages provided under each subtask. So as you can see, in subtask A, the weightage is 40%. In subtask B, the weightage is 32%. And in subtask C, the weightage is 28%. So this gives us an indication of how much marks are dedicated for each and every subtask. So for instance, as you know, each section, your entire paper is marked out of 150. So your paper is divided into 4 main sections. So 150 divided by 4 comes up to 37.5 marks per section. So once you know how much marks are allocated per each section, which is 37.5 marks, then you can easily determine how many marks are allocated focused on each subtask. Give me a second, please, guys. Someone's mic is on. All right, folks, sorry about that. So by looking at the weightage, you can easily determine the mark allocations. So you have to work it out on your own. So as you can see, we are in section number 3, task 3. For the first subtask, the weightage provided is 40%. So 40% of 37.5 marks come up to 15 marks in total. And let's look at subtask B. The weightage provided is 32%. So 32% of 37.5 marks come up to 12 marks in total. And likewise, for subtask C, the weightage is 28%. So 28% of 37.5 marks come up to 10.5 marks in total. So now you know how much marks are allocated for each subtask. When you know this, you can easily determine how many points you need to include under each subtask. So each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. You need to remember this. Each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So if you are to score 12 marks, for instance, you need to include 3 or 4 valid points within your answer plan. So based on the weightages, determine mark allocations. When you know mark allocations, then you can determine how many answer points you need to include within each subtask. Each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So if you are to gain 12 marks, you need to come up with, I'm sorry, I got the numbers wrong. If you are to score 12 marks, you need to include 4 to 6 valid points for subtask B. 12 divided by 2 comes up to 6, or 12 divided by 3 comes up to 4. So in order to score the full amount of marks, you need to include 4 to 6 valid points within your answer. And in order to score 15 marks, 15 divided by 2 comes up to something like 7.5, and 15 divided by 3 comes up to something like 5. So 5, in order to score 15 marks for the first subtask, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points. So when you know this, you know for a fact how many points you need to include within your answer. When this is the case, you will never develop an answer which is extremely short or extremely long. Instead, you will develop an answer which is totally aligned with mark allocations. All right, so that's how we are supposed to determine mark allocations, and based on it, determine the number of points which you need to include under each subtask. And do not spend time on formatting such as paragraph alignment. The only type of formatting which you need to be aware of is with regards to headings and subheadings, as well as developing answers in paragraph form. And always remember, you are getting marks for the quality of your answer, not the quantity. So I've seen tutors out there saying, in order to score this amount of marks, you need to write this amount of words, which makes absolutely no sense. Why am I saying it? Because as I've mentioned throughout this webinar series, the CIMA examiner is trying to replicate a real-life corporate environment. So in a real-life corporate environment, will your boss ever look at your response and penalize you just because it's short? That's not the case. Your boss is going to look at the content of your response rather than the quantity of your response. So the examiner is actually looking at that, the quality of your answer, not the quantity. So there's absolutely no point of writing hordes and hordes of unrelated information. You won't gain any marks, and there's no way for you to keep track of the word count, because within the Pearson VUE system on which you attempt your exam, there's no indication of word count. So don't, approach this exam thinking about the length of your answer. Instead, think about the quality. That's exactly why you need to develop answers considering the mark allocations, and based on the mark allocations, you are supposed to determine how many points you need to include within each subtask. Then you develop an answer which is totally aligned with the mark allocations and aligned with the requirement at hand. So that's the answering technique. So let's try to understand the steps which you need to adhere to when implementing this answering technique. So first things first, as I mentioned earlier, you are supposed to read through the scenario, which will thereby, you need to do this within 5 minutes. And after doing so, you are supposed to, the second step is to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So let's see, what I'm talking about. So let's look at the first subtask. The requirement goes as, explain what each variance means and the possible reasons for their occurrence. So you need to simplify this requirement, because when you are operating in a time pressured environment, although this requirement is quite short, you will struggle a bit. You'd have to read through it a couple of times to understand what the requirement is. So rather than reading through this couple of times, the best practice is to try and summarize or shorten this requirement. So that's exactly what you can see here. I've simply, the requirement goes as, explain what each variance means and the possible reasons for their occurrence. I've simply mentioned it as explain each variance. So when you have a simplified requirement at your disposal, number one, you can easily understand what you are expected to achieve when developing answers. And at the same time, whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are headed in the correct direction, whether your answer is aligned with the requirement or not. If you spot that you are deviating from the requirement, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and easily understand how you should come back on track, thereby developing an answer which is totally aligned with the requirement. So let's look at the second subtask. The requirement goes as, explain whether it is prudent to hold Jack responsible for the fixed production variances of the production department. So I've simplified it as, should we hold Jack accountable for fixed production variances? So, once you simplify it, you can easily understand what you're expected to achieve. And as I mentioned earlier, whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are headed in the correct direction. And the third subtask goes as, hope you can explain 3 possible short-term options to utilize the cash surplus. I've simplified it as 3 short-term options to use cash surpluses. All right, so that's your second step. You are supposed to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. And after doing so, based on the subtasks, you are supposed to stipulate the number of headings and what should be included within each heading. And each heading should be in bold and underlined format. And if you feel that under each, main heading, you need to further fraction out the answer, you are welcome to use subheadings, which should be in bold format. And once you have determined the headings and subheadings, then you should start developing the answer plan. And as I mentioned earlier, a maximum of 20 minutes should be dedicated towards developing the answer plan concerning all subtasks which appear within a section. So within, if you look at this mock exam, section number 3, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 different subtasks. So within 20 minutes, you need to develop the answer plan concerning or covering all 3 subtasks, okay? And when developing the answer plan, determine the mark allocations based on the weightages, as I mentioned earlier, and each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks per answer point. And when developing the answer plan, develop it on the answer screen itself. Do not use the scratch pad. So if you had attempted the OCS exam previously, you know what I'm talking about. You'd gain access to a scratch pad. So most students, when it comes to planning the answer, they will type stuff on the scratch pad. The issue is when you are typing your answer plan on the scratchpad, let's assume you plan to include 8 valid points. However, when you are shifting between the scratchpad and your final answer or your answer screen, when you're shifting between the scratchpad and your answer screen, uh, due to stress levels, due to you operating in a time pressured environment, you might miss out on one of the points which you intended to include. This, as I mentioned earlier, within the scratchpad, you plan to include 8 valid points, but in your final answer, you have only included 7 points, or you have only included 7 paragraphs. This happens when you are shifting between two different screens. So rather than being exposed to these type of complexities, it's best practice to develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. Then you need not toggle between two different screens, and at the same time, you can make sure that you cover all the points which appear in your answer plan when it comes to expanding the answer in paragraph form. So develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. Don't use the scratchpad, and utilizing the remaining 20 minutes of your time. I'm sorry, I've mixed up the numbers here. This should be 20 minutes. So utilizing the remaining 20 minutes of your time, you are supposed to expand the answer plan, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. Okay, so these are the steps which you need to adhere to when developing answers. It's not easy, although I'm asking you to develop the answer plan concerning all subtasks within 20 minutes. You won't be able to achieve this because you are doing it for the first time. Although I'm asking you to do it, develop the answer plan within 20 minutes, when you try to do it for the first time, you will actually take 45 minutes or more than 45 minutes. You'd be frustrated. You'd think that, okay, this guy was asking us to develop the answer plan within 20 minutes. I can't do it within 45 minutes. You'll start blaming yourself, or you'd stick to the old way of doing things, which is to read through the scenario and straight away start typing the final answer. I want you to be exposed to these type of inefficiencies, these type of stressful situations. Why? Because if you are exposed to these stresses right now, you can take steps to overcome these stressful situations when conducting your preparations, rather than facing these issues at your real exam. So the examiner has given you some time, 7 weeks in total, from the pre-scene release until the date of the exam, so that you can fine-tune your answering and time management techniques. You are supposed to learn and fine-tune your stress management techniques. So if you keep replicating these techniques across the 6 mock exams which we have developed for you, it's as if you are repeating the same technique over and over 24 times, which is enough and more practice for you to get it right at your real exam. So you can only achieve this by practicing. So don't expect to implement these techniques straight away when you are attempting or when you are implementing these techniques for the first time. Instead, you need some practice. So that's exactly why you need to attempt each mock exam under exam conditions with the intention of mastering your answering and time management techniques. All right, so these are the steps which you need to adhere to. Then let's look at the technicalities behind your exam platform. So we have developed an exam platform which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you attempt your real examination. So as you can see, this is your landing page. This will be your landing page, and in it you can see that there are the number of sections which indicate how many sections are there in your paper, and in each section the time allocation is 45 minutes, and you can see the number of subtasks as well. As I mentioned earlier, in each subtask you'd see either 2 subtasks or 3 subtasks, and you'd also see the weightages. All right, so and once you click on the begin button, you will start the exam. So you will see a timer in here which starts counting down from 45 minutes, and you will see 4 different buttons which gives you access to a calculator, a scratchpad on which you can jot down stuff if you want, and you'd also gain access to the reference material by clicking on this button. As I mentioned earlier, each paper carries just 1 reference material or 3 different reference material, or there could be just 2 reference material. and you will also gain access to the pre-scene once you click on this pre-scene button. So if you want to check some information, you can click on the pre-scene button and access your pre-scene. And then you'd see the question in this form, and there will be a next button. Once you click on it, you'd be directed to the answer screen. And within this answer screen, you are expected to type out your answer. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you'd have access to the calculator button, the scratch pad, the reference material, and the pre-scene. And you can always go back to the requirement by clicking on the previous button. Once you do so, you would be viewing your requirement. But I'm not recommending you to go back to the previous section, because within this answer screen itself, you have the opportunity of gaining access to the information presented in your scenario. So by clicking on the reference material on the answer screen itself towards the right of your answer screen, you will gain access to the reference material. So you can develop your answer onto the left of your screen whilst having access to the reference material then and there, rather than having to shift between pages. And at the same time, if you click on the pre-scene button, you will gain access to the task or the question. So you can easily figure out the information within the answer screen itself, rather than having to go back to the previous page to gain access to the task or the scenario. All the information is presented in here. And at the same time, you can see that there's a pre-scene tab as well. Once you click on the pre-scene tab, you will gain access to your relevant pre-scene as well. All these information can be accessed within your answer screen itself, which makes your life easy when it comes to developing your answers. And once you are done with it, you are supposed to click on the submit button. Once the first 45 minutes are up, automatically you would be sent to the second section or the next section. Or else, if you complete your answers, for instance, within 42 minutes, if you click on the submit button, you would be directed to the next section. And again, when you are in the next section, you would see the timer running out from 45 minutes. You will have access to the calculator, scratchpad, reference material, and pre-scene. And there's a next button which will take you to the answer screen. However, you can't see a previous button in here, which tells us clearly that you cannot go back to section number 1 if you are in section number 2. So when thinking in terms of managing your time, you need to think about 4 slots of 45 minutes each, because once you are in a certain section, you can't go back to a previous section. Okay, so that's how your exam platform is structured, and we have taken screenshots from the exam platform which we have developed at TCS, which is the exact replica of the Pearson system. So it's essential that you master your answering and time management techniques under exam conditions. That's exactly why we have developed an exam platform which is akin to the Pearson system on which you'd attempt your real exam. This is the best way to be exposed to exam stress when conducting preparations. I want you to be exposed to stressful situations, because if so, you'd understand the gravity of your paper and you take steps to overcome these issues before walking into your real examination. All right, so that's how your exam platform works. And before we walk into the mock exam discussion, let me quickly tell you what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the OCS page. By clicking on this button, you can create a free user account. Once you have access to this free user account, you'd have access to the student dashboard. Go to My Courses. In front of OCS Free, click on the Access Content button. Once you have done so, you'd gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops which we conduct via the student dashboard itself. And under the study material tab, you'd gain access to the pre-scene mind map, the syllabus coverage document, and the answer plan of mock exam 1. And under the mocks tab, you'd gain access to the question and the suggested answer of mock exam 1. And under the exams tab, you'd see OCS mock 1. Once you click on this, you can start attempting mock exam 1 under exam conditions via the exam platform which we have developed. So I don't want you to, start the mock attempt right now. Wait until this webinar is done so that you are well versed with the answering and time management technique. Once you are thorough with these techniques, you can start attempting the mock exam under real exam conditions. So make use of these free resources on offer by creating a free user account. And if you are interested in investing on our paid content, click on this button and check the material which are on offer. And if you are yet to gain access to the OCS WhatsApp group, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we'll keep you informed about the weekly commencement dates and times of the weekly webinars and workshops. And at the same time, we will share hordes of free content with you. And if you have any questions and concerns, I'm always there to help you guys out. And talking about what we offer two packages, the essential course and the value course. The essential course is designed for those who have completed their OTQs. So if you have completed your P1, E1, and F1 OTQs, you are already conversant with the theoretical elements. You simply need to work on improving your application skills. So we have developed these resources with the intention of making sure that you improve your application skills. So you'd gain access to the recordings of all weekly webinars and workshops. You'd gain access to 3 mock exams with suggested answers. So if you're coming through the exemption route, since this is a theory-heavy exam, as I mentioned earlier, it's simply a matter of improving your application. So having access to just 3 mocks will help. And you'd gain access to the pre-scene analysis videos. We have covered the entire pre-scene across 4 videos. And if you watch these 4 videos, you need not conduct your own research to decrypt pre-scene information. We have done it for you. You will also gain access to something called the annotated pre-scene. Let me quickly show you what the annotated pre-scene looks like. As you can see, we have come up with tutor annotations and with 2 things in mind. Number 1 is to make sure that we create a good summary of the entire pre-scene. So you'd gain access to this document, which goes on for 25 to 30 pages. And you won't have the capability to understand the most relevant information and to understand what type of information you need to leave out when trying to understand what appears within the pre-scene. So in order to make your life easy, we've come up with a good summary concerning all the information presented in each page of your pre-scene document. And on top of that, we've, based on the hints provided by the CIMA examiner, we have considered probable exam scenarios which can be tested at the exam, and tied to these exam scenarios, we have indicated the probable syllabus areas which can be tested. And based on these elements, we have developed our mock exams. So this is what the annotated pre-scene looks like. And you'd also gain access to the industry and financial analysis slides. So our industry analysis slides consist of 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined your industry. In the second and third parts, we have explained about the competitive landscape and the industry trends. And based on these information covered under these 2 elements, scenarios will be developed and thrown at you at your real exam. And at the very end, concerning 2 real-life companies, we have explained 2 real-life examples with the intention of ensuring that you gain a good understanding of how the real-life industry operates. And looking at the financial analysis slides, these are a set of slides which we developed for a previous case study. We have evaluated each financial statement in depth, yet making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily gain an understanding of what appears within each financial statement. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, and the statement of cash flows. And at the very end, we have conducted a ratio analysis. And again, we have evaluated each ratio in depth. So these are the resources on offer if you invest on the essential course. And you'd also gain access to the top 10 likely issue slides, which indicate the most prominent scenarios which can be tested at your exam. You'd also gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you read through this kit, within 10 to 15 minutes, you are supposed to get a good understanding about the technicalities of your OCS exam. And you'd also gain access to a tutor-managed live chat. So the essential course is priced at £199. And talking about the value course is intended for those who are coming through the exemption route and those who had failed the OCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem. there are gaps in theory knowledge and issues with application. So with the intention of teaching you theory and at the same time making sure that you improve your application skills, we have included additional resources under the premium course, under the value course rather. You'd gain access to all the resources which come with the essential course. Additionally, you'd gain access to the OTQ revision cards. So after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you were struggling with a certain theoretical concept, in a jiffy, you can brush up your knowledge by going through our OTQ revision cards. You have the opportunity of attempting all 6 mocks under exam conditions via our exam platform, which is the best way to fine-tune your answering, time management, and stress management technique. And at the same time, you will gain access to the answer plans concerning the 6 mocks which we have developed. And when you have access to these answer plans, you can easily understand how to structure each answer, the logic behind each answer, how to bring in theoretical elements or concepts when developing your answers, and how to bring in information from the pre-scene with the intention of adding value to your answer. And after attempting each mock exam, as per our study plan, you are supposed to conduct revision, which is to redevelop answer plans on your own. Once you have redeveloped answer plans, compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's answer plans to figure out what your shortcomings are. And the value course is priced at £399, which can be paid in 2 installments of £199 each, or you can opt to pay in full. If so, you'd save £100. The price will be just £299. So you can click on either of these buttons and invest on your preferred course. And if you are planning to sit for the exams in August 2024 to 2025 rather, you can invest right now, which gives you a head start so that you can complete your preparations in a stress-free environment. And let me quickly take you to the OCS study plan to figure out what you are intended to do, to actually highlight what you are intended to achieve within this week. So as per the study plan, we are in week number 3. This is the most hectic week out of the 8 weeks which appear within this study plan. So within this week, you are supposed to dedicate 12 hours of study time. So I want you to do the hard yards within this week so that from the next week onwards, you are only supposed to dedicate 9 hours of study time. So within this week, you are supposed to attempt mock exams 1 and 2 via the exam platform. So after learning answering and time management techniques, put your knowledge to test by attempting mocks 1 and 2 under exam conditions via our exam platform. Once you have done so, redevelop answer plans concerning mocks 1 and 2, because I said that you are supposed to not just attempt mock exams, you are supposed to conduct revision. And the best way to revise is to redevelop answer plans, because if you master answer planning technique, you will be extremely successful at your real exam. So test your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans. Once you have redeveloped answer plans, compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's to further fine-tune your answering technique. So that's what you are supposed to do within this week. If you do so, from next week onwards, it's simply a matter of attempting 1 mock exam per week and conducting revision focused on the same weekly mock exam. Okay, so that's what we offer at TCS. Having said that, let's move on to the discussion of mock exam 1. So these are the steps which I highlighted earlier. Read the scenario, reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner, determine headings and subheadings, develop the answer plan, and then expand the answer plan, taking 20 minutes of your time. Okay, so I'm going to take you through one of the questions which appear within mock exam 1, section 3. So the time allocation is 45 minutes. Today is the 3rd of July, 2024. Due to a successful marketing campaign carried out by Halfpenny's sales and marketing team last month, there has been an increase in orders, especially from small retailers. You receive the following email from your finance manager, and the subject goes as variance analysis and cash management. So I'm not going to take you through this section in its entirety. Instead, I'm going to direct your attention towards one of the subtasks because we don't have too much time to go through the entire section. And this subtask concerns your P1 syllabus, and this is a question to do with variance analysis. I want your help to evaluate the variance report, which was created for the month of June. See reference material 3. So reference material 3 gives you information about production overheads, variances concerning production overheads for the month of June 2025. So 3 different variances concerning variable overheads and fixed overheads are presented. There's an indication about the expenditure variance, efficiency variance, as well as the capacity variance. And there are a certain set of notes available as well. Let's read through the notes to figure out what the company has faced in the month of June. Actual production exceeded budgeted figures, leading to overtime work. So our actual production was higher than what we budgeted for, and this actual production had led to overtime work. The overtime premium was allocated to variable production overhead costs. So OT cost was allocated to variable production overheads. During the month, 8 production employees resigned following a labor dispute. In response, Trey Halfpenny, our managing director, decided to hire 15 individuals as replacements to accommodate the significant increase in production volume. So we faced an increase in production volumes rather. And in the same environment, 8 individuals had left our production floor. And because of that, we had to recruit 15 new individuals, replacing the previous 8, and at the same time making sure that we are in a position to meet our production demands. Additionally, he recruited 3 more production supervisors and leased extra equipment to ensure smooth production operations for the new recruits. Production flow was negatively impacted due to faults in some industrial kneading machines, a result of maintenance lapses. External maintenance technicians were brought in to address the issue promptly. Okay, so that's a shortcoming which we have faced. The newly elected government implemented a reduction in electricity tariffs, which is good for us. And the overhead absorption rate for the production department is based on direct machine hours. This is exactly what's highlighted within your pre-seen document. Okay, so these are the information at your disposal. Let's try to figure out what your requirement is. You are supposed to explain what each variance means and the possible reasons for their occurrence. So we have read through the scenario, not in its entirety, because I'm simply going to direct your attention towards one single subtask. And the next step is to reiterate each requirement in your own words in a concise manner. So this requirement, which reads as explain what each variance means and the possible reasons for their occurrence, should be reiterated in your own words in a simpler manner. So I've simplified it as explain each variance. Okay, so that's what you're supposed to achieve. And then you are supposed to determine headings and subheadings. So this question has everything to do with variance analysis. So I've developed a main heading which goes as variance analysis, which is in bold and underlined format. And for each type of variance, I've come up with a subheading which is in bold format. And then you are supposed to develop the answer plan, thereby allocating 20 minutes of your time, covering all subtasks. I'm just going to direct your attention towards this subtask within this webinar. And when developing the answer plan, you are supposed to determine the mark allocations based on the weightages provided. So the weightage provided is 40%. 40% out of 37.5 marks come up to 15 marks in total. As you know, each valid point carries 2 or 3 marks. So in order to score 15 marks, you need to come up with 5 to 7 valid points within your answer plan. Okay, so now we know how to what to include within the answer plan, or how many points you need to include within the answer plan. So let's direct our attention towards how to structure the answer. So I'm going to take you to section number 3 of this answer plan. Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I've come up with a main heading which goes as variance analysis. And for each type of variance highlighted within this scenario, I've come up with subheading which is in bold format. So first things first, let's look at the variable overhead expenditure variance. So the variable overhead expenditure variance is a favorable one, which comes up to $12,337. Okay, so your role is to explain what this favorable variance means and what led to a favorable variable overhead expenditure variance. All right. So the actual variable overhead, a favorable expenditure variance indicates the fact that the actual variable overhead was lower than what we budgeted for. So we have budgeted for, let's assume, $10,000. However, the actual variable overhead was lower than $10,000. Why is this the case? Because as per what's highlighted within the scenario, we benefited by the reduced electricity tariff. So it's specifically mentioned that the newly elected government implemented a reduction in electricity tariff. So that is exactly why our variable overhead costs were lesser than what we budgeted for. And at the same time, although this is the case, we were exposed to an additional cost, which was tied to overtime premium. So our production exceeded our target volumes or our budgets. So because of that, we had to pay overtime. And this overtime premium was allocated to variable production overhead cost, which impacts the expenditure variance. Okay. Although this is the case, still, even after us, paying, additional overtime payments, still the expenditure variance is favorable. This indicates the fact that the OT cost or the reduction in electricity tariff, exposed us to additional benefits which outweighed the impact of the additional overtime payments. So for instance, let's assume we had to spend $1,000 as additional overtime payments. However, the reduction in electricity tariff came up to something like $3,000. So we benefited by the reduced electricity tariff by $3,000, whereas we spent just $1,000 as overtime payment. So because of that, our although we were impacted by the additional overtime cost, this reduction in electricity tariff had outweighed this overtime expenditure. So that's exactly why the variable overhead expenditure variance is favorable. Okay, so moving on to variable overhead efficiency variance. Looking at the second variance, variable overhead efficiency variance, you can see a significant adverse variance. So let's try to figure out why we were exposed to such an adverse variance. This indicates the fact that the actual variable overhead per unit was higher than what we budgeted for. So the per unit variable overhead was higher than our budgets. Why was this the case? Because we had to deal with inexperienced or inefficient employees, because we recruited 15 new employees, replacing the 8 individuals who left us. So whenever a company is dealing with new recruits, there is some time for them to get their grips with how we conduct our operations. We'd have to conduct an induction process. We might have to, train them for some time, and, they will be struggling a bit because they are doing something new. So because of that, when dealing with inexperienced people, then definitely our efficiency will be negatively impacted. So our efficiency has dropped. That's exactly why our actual variable overhead per unit has increased compared to what we budgeted. And high actual production volumes strained resources, causing inefficiencies. This could be a possibility as well, because we plan to produce an X amount of units within the month of June. However, due to sales increasing, we were forced to increase our production volumes. When we are trying to increase production volumes, if you are dealing with scarce resources, then definitely it will strain our resource capabilities, which in turn will lead to some type of inefficiency. So again, this will impact the way in which we utilize our variable overheads. And shifting our attention towards the capacity variance has nothing to do with variable overheads. So shifting our attention towards the fixed overheads, again, looking at the expenditure variance, you can see that it's a significantly adverse variance. This indicates the fact that the actual fixed overhead was higher than the budget. So if the actual fixed overhead was $100,000, and although this is the case, if our budget was just $50,000, then we'd see an adverse fixed overhead expenditure variance. Why were we exposed to such a scenario? Because as per the scenario's information, we leased out extra equipment, which increases our fixed overheads. And at the same time, we recruited new employees, and these salaries are monthly salaries which we pay to these employees, and these monthly salaries therefore impacts the fixed overhead of our company. So we recruited new employees, and we recruited supervisors who are usually better paid than production employees. So as per what's highlighted within the scenario, our managing director hired 15 individuals as replacements, and at the same time he recruited 3 more production supervisors with the intention of tackling production issues, and at the same time leased extra equipment. So all these things, leasing extra equipment, wages of new recruits such as employees, supervisors, and there were maintenance issues within our production floor. So because of that, external maintenance technicians were brought in. So we have to pay salaries to them as well, which again increases our fixed overheads. So all these things led to our actual fixed overhead being higher than what we budgeted. And moving on to the fixed overhead efficiency variance, again it is an adverse variance which comes up to a significant figure. So let's figure out what this tells us. An adverse fixed overhead efficiency variance indicates that we were less efficient in using fixed overheads relative to the budget. So why was our efficiency impacted tied to fixed overheads? Because we were exposed to faults in machines which disrupted production. It is clearly mentioned that production flow was negatively impacted due to faults in some industrial kneading machines as a result of maintenance lapses. So because of that, our efficiency was decreased. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, it takes some time for us to train or carry out induction processes concerning new recruits, and this had impacted our fixed overheads because although we are paying salaries to these new recruits on a monthly basis, we are not getting the optimal output from them. So because of that, our fixed overhead efficiency had dropped. And looking at the fixed overhead capacity variance, it is a favorable variance, which indicates the fact that the production department used more capacity or had access to more capacity than anticipated. Why is this the case? Definitely, when we are trying to increase production, we need to gain access to additional capacity. And as per the information presented in this scenario, we did have access to additional capacity because we hired additional employees, which gives us access to additional labor resources. And at the same time, we leased extra equipment, which in turn gives us access to additional machine hours. So all these things leads to a situation where we have access to additional capacity. And due to this fact, our fixed overhead capacity variance is favorable. Okay, so that's the answer for the first subtask. So just like how I explained the answer, you are supposed to develop an answer plan when attempting your mock exam. Once you have developed the answer plan, which is in bullet points, which is a mind map, then utilizing the remaining time, which is 20 minutes of your time, you are supposed to expand the answer plan concerning all 3 subtasks. So since I just took you through one single subtask, I'm going to show you the suggested answer of subtask 1. As you can see, considering each variance, I've come up with an answer which is in paragraph form. So for instance, looking at the variable overhead expenditure variance, when developing the answer plan, it's in bullet points. However, in here, you can see that I've, included all these points within the first paragraph, thereby, making sure that the marker can easily figure out how many points I've included within the answer, which makes his or her life easy. And this in turn will impact your scores in a positive manner. Okay, so that's what you're expected to achieve. So although it's easy for me to do all the explanations like this and ask you to develop the answer plan within 20 minutes concerning all subtasks, it's not easy to achieve. So that's why I want you to keep practicing these techniques over and over each time when you are attempting a mock exam. when attempting mock exams, don't attempt it on a section by section basis. I've dealt with students who attempt section 1 of a mock today, section 2 tomorrow, and section 3 day after tomorrow, and likewise. However, at the real exam, you have to sit in one place 3 hours at a stretch and attempt 4 sections in one go, one after the other. So just like in your real exam, attempt a mock exam under exam conditions so that you stand a chance to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. Okay, so that's what I wanted to highlight. I hope you gained an understanding of how to implement the answering and time management techniques, which I taught at the inception of this session. And I invite you guys to practice the answering technique by attempting mock number 1 via TCS's exam platform, which is accessible via the paid and free content. Okay, so let's move on to the last part of today's webinar. I want to highlight what you need to achieve when you are trying to, rebound from failure. So some of you who are part of this session might have failed your OCS exam previously. So before you change your strategies, you need to actually conduct a personal reflection. You have to be honest to yourself and try and answer the question whether you gave your best shot last time. So when dealing with students, I've been dealing with OCS students for the past 13 or 14 years, if I'm not mistaken. And almost all the students out there, they start their preparations in the last 2 weeks leading up to the exam. So when you start your preparations, 2 weeks from the exam, you will have enough time to attempt the 6 mock exams, because you can attempt a mock exam every other day and still make sure that you attempt all 6 mocks. However, the problem is, although you have time to attempt the 6 mock exams, you won't have time to conduct revision. The most important element in your preparation process is investing time to revise, thereby redeveloping answer plans. So you have learned how you should tackle this type of a question to do with variable overhead and fixed overhead variances after this session. However, you need to test your knowledge by redeveloping this answer plan on your own. Now you know what to include within the answer, how to approach this type of a question. Then after this webinar, you are supposed to redevelop this answer plan on your own, thereby testing your knowledge, practicing this technique, and trying to figure out whether you have understood these concepts which I explained, and at the same time, whether you are in a position to practically apply these concepts when developing answers. So when I've explained the answer, you will feel that, okay, this is quite easy to achieve. This answer is logical. Yes, that's accurate. However, you need to practice on your own and see for yourself whether you are capable of developing an answer plan which is akin to what appears within TCS's answer plans. So after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans on your own. After you have redeveloped the answer plans, compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's answer plans to further refine your answering technique. So after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to focus on the same mock, redevelop answer plans, compare answer plans. If you stick to this type of a process, it's as if you are focusing on each mock 3 times. That's enough and more practice to make sure that you gain extremely good marks at your real exam. So if you start preparations in your last 2 weeks, you will only have time to go through the 6 mock exams one at a time. Whereas if you start preparations right now, you will have enough time to attempt the mock exams and at the same time conduct revision, which is to redevelop answer plans. You can again conduct revision, thereby comparing your answer plans to TCS's. So if you do so, you will be successful in your upcoming sitting. If not, if you're planning to do everything within 2 weeks, just like what you did last time, then you are headed in the wrong direction. And at the same time, you would have attempted just 1 or 2 mock exams. So likewise, in a little while, I'm going to highlight major issues faced by students who end up failing. And when I'm taking you through this list, try to figure out whether you were exposed to similar issues when conducting your preparations last time. And in this session, you need to take steps to avoid these issues. So I'm going to take you through all these points in a little while. So conduct your personal reflection. When doing so, try to figure out whether you gave your best shot. And when trying to understand what went wrong in your previous exam, it's essential that you diagnose the reasons this time and address each of them. I will help you to diagnose the reasons in a little while. And also, when you have understood your shortcomings, you have to take steps to overcome these shortcomings. And the only way to overcome these shortcomings is to attempt mock exams, refer to the suggested answers, as well as the answer plans concerning each of the mocks which we have developed. And then based on it, you need to develop or come up with an action plan, which is to work smarter than the previous attempt. The smartest thing to do is to stick to our study plan. So don't wait until the last moment to start preparations. Start prep right now so that you'd have enough time to attempt all 6 mocks, and at the same time, you'd have enough time to conduct your revision. Also, when you start right now, you won't be exposed to undue stressors. You will have enough time to balance your work as well as education. So, start your preparations right now, thereby sticking to our study plan. So let's look at common reasons which leads to a failure within the OCS exam. Practicing just 2 or 3 mocks is the common most issue. If you are coming through the general route, if you had completed your 3 OTQs, practicing 3 mocks will help you because you have already learned your theory. It's simply a matter of, understanding how to work on your application skills, and you can, improve your application skills significantly if you attempt just 3 mock exams. However, if you are coming through an exemption route or if you had failed previously, practicing just 2 or 3 mocks won't help you, because if you had referred to past exam variants or past papers, you would have seen 6 different papers which are developed concerning each pre-scene. So why 6 variants? Because the examiner intends to cover the entire syllabus. So if you are to cover the entire syllabus, you need to develop 6 mock exams. There's no way out of it. So since the examiner develops 6 mocks, when conducting your preparations, especially if you're coming through an exemption route, and if you had failed the exam previously, it's essential that you attempt 6 mock exams with the intention of ensuring that you are conversant with how each syllabus area is tested at your exam. So you are not expected to take a chance. Instead, it's essential that you attempt all 6 mock exams to make sure that you know how to tackle each type of syllabus element, and you'd know how each syllabus area is tested at your examination. And also another issue is inappropriate answering technique, which leads to mismanagement of time. So as I mentioned earlier, most students out there, right after reading through the scenario, they'd start typing their final answer or fully fledged answer. This is not the best thing to do. Instead, you need to spend some time to plan out your structure or answer, because that's exactly what you do at office. So when you are responding to an email which you receive from your boss, you'd spend some time to figure out whether you have addressed all the concerns, whether you have considered all the important information which appears within the email before sending the response to your boss. So you need to stick to a similar approach when developing answers at this exam. That's exactly why you need to master the answering and time management technique, which I highlighted within this webinar. And not practicing mocks under simulated exam conditions is a killer. As I mentioned earlier, there would be, there's a tendency for students to attempt mocks under relaxed environments rather than sitting in one place 3 hours at a stretch and attempting a mock under exam conditions, under time pressure, under a time pressured environment. Students tend to, attempt certain sections of a mock exam. I've dealt with students who just, go through the questions and answers, the suggested answers, without actually attempting them. It's essential that you attempt mock exams under exam conditions, which is the only way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. And lack of technical knowledge is a problem, especially at this stage, because as I mentioned in the first webinar, this exam is primarily focused on testing your theoretical knowledge. So this is a theory heavy paper That's why most students struggle with this examination compared to MCS and SCS, because in MCS and SCS, you can get through if you can think straight, if you can come up with logical recommendations or logical answers. However, in here, if you are clueless about what the variable overhead expenditure variance is, you can't get any marks. So you have to be extremely conversant with all syllabus areas. That's exactly why it's essential that you attempt 6 mock exams, which are intended to cover all syllabus areas. And shortcomings in application of knowledge is a problem as well. Although you know how to work out each of these variances, if you don't know how to explain why we were exposed to each type of variance, considering the information presented at your examination, you won't get any marks. I've dealt with students when faced with this type of a question, they will try to work out these numbers. You can't work out the numbers by looking at the notes in the first place. And at the same time, there are another set of students who would keep explaining what an expenditure variance is, rather than focusing the attention towards what this favorable variance tells us about the company's performance. So that's exactly why you need to really work on your application skills. And the only way to improve your application skills is to attempt mocks under exam conditions, practicing the answering technique. I expect you guys to redevelop answer plans. When it comes to redeveloping answer plans, you are essentially working towards improving your application skills. And most students rely on past exam variants and expect to pass this exam. So if you had done so previously, you have to avoid this this time, because there's absolutely no point of going through past exam variants, because the past papers are based on a totally different pre-scene. So the internal dynamics and the external dynamics, as well as what appears within the financial statements, will be totally different to that of what Halfpenny faces as a company. So because of that, and at the same time, certain syllabus areas which are relevant for a previous case study will not be relevant for this time's case study, given the different internal dynamics. For instance, last time's case study, they were using the absorption rate, the direct labor as the direct labor hours as the absorption rate, but in here, the absorption rate is based on direct machine hours. So if we are exposed to, if there's a question to do with linear programming, for instance, if we are exposed to a scarcity in direct machine hours, the type of strategies we can take, or the type of steps we can take to gain access to additional machine hours, is totally different to the type of steps which we need to take to gain access to additional labor hours. So likewise, there will be differences between different case studies. And talking about KPIs, the KPIs which were relevant for a previous case study is totally irrelevant considering your pre-scene. For instance, if you look at how we deal with retailers, last time's case study, we were involved with retailer-based sales, and at the same time, we were using our website. Back office was using its website to sell its products directly to consumers. However, in Halfpenny's case, we are only dealing with retailers, small retailers and large retailers. So the KPIs, which are intended to keep track of our sales performance, will be quite different to quite different to the type of KPIs which are intended to keep track of sales performance of back office. So that's exactly why you need to practice mock exams which are exam standard and at the same time 100% pre-scene specific. And lack of evaluation is a problem as well. Students, as I mentioned earlier, since they start preparations just 2 weeks before the exam, they only have time to attempt the mock exams. They don't have time to evaluate the quality of their answers. So that's exactly why I want you to start right now. Then you will have enough time to spend on evaluations or revision, which paves way, or which gives you the opportunity to redevelop answer plans and compare your fresh answer plans to our answer plans, thereby taking steps to improve the quality of your answers. And not adhering to a study plan is a major problem. That's exactly why students are clueless of what to achieve. And at the same time, that's exactly why students wait until the last moment to start preparations. So, we have made your life easy by developing a foolproof and tried and tested 8-week study plan, which can be accessed via our website itself. So, on a weekly basis, go to our website, check what you're expected to achieve within the week, and, within 7 days, try to achieve what's highlighted within our study plan. I've explained the study plan in depth in the first webinar. So if you missed out on the first webinar, please go watch the recorded version, which can be accessed via our student dashboard and via our YouTube handle. Okay. And those who stuck to our study plan were extremely successful. So we achieved a 92% pass rate in the November 2024 OCS sitting, and we are yet to compile the final pass rates concerning the sessions which concluded in February. But, as at now, only 2 students had failed. So our pass rates will be extremely high this time as well. So this individual who came through the FLP route, this was the first CIMA case study. This was this individual's first attempt at the OCS exam. Although the pass mark is 80, this individual scored 112 marks, which is an extremely good score for someone who's coming through FLP. So you can achieve just that if you start preparations and stick to our study plan. All right, so having said that, I'm going to start the Q&A. If you have any questions or concerns, you can switch on your mic and talk or drop a message via the chat. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, folks. So thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. And if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. So, visit our website. Let me fish for the website. It's not here anymore. Yeah, so visit our website and click on the contact button and drop us a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours, or you can directly email us via info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us on this number. And I urge you to follow us on our social media handles, especially TikTok and YouTube, because via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which is a good mind map, which covers the entire pre-scene. So keep watching these 6 TikToks of, when going to office on a daily basis, for instance, so that you are constantly kept reminded of the most important points which are highlighted within your pre-scene document. Also, if you missed out on the first 2 webinars, it's essential that you watch the recorded versions so you can access them via our YouTube handle. So go subscribe to our YouTube handle and watch them. And also, I want you to read the blog post as well, which we have developed concerning Halfpenny. So go to the blog area and click on this button so that you gain access to this blog which we have developed concerning your chosen company. So having said that, it brings us to the end of today's webinar. I hope you gained something out of this session. And as I mentioned earlier, I invite you to implement these techniques which you learned by attempting mock exam 1 via the exam platform, which is accessible via the free and paid content. So I hope you'd start preparations right now rather than waiting until the last moment. I hope you'd take steps to avoid the pitfalls which led to a failure previously, so that you'd be extremely successful in this time's case study examination. So I wish you all the very best, and I expect to see you guys next Sunday at the same time, 10 a.m. UK or 9 GMT, in which I'm going to take you through examiners' comments and share stress management techniques with you. Thank you for joining, and take care.